You're listening to Off Color, a podcast where we keep it real when we talk about race and identity. I'm your host, Rebecca Henderson, aka the Tan Tigress, and I have the impeccable Janice of European descent, Motzko. Hey, Janice, so glad that you're here.
Hey, everybody. Happy to be here.
All right. For this episode of Off Color, it's a little bit different than what we normally do because we had students, local high school students from Northeast Early College, which is located in Denver, Colorado, in the Montbello neighborhood, come on down to the studio. And it was supposed to be just sort of like just a tour, show them the building, show them how podcasts are made. And turns out the interviews were so fantastic and we thought the messages were so important that we decided to just go ahead and put it up and let you guys listen to it and enjoy it and also get some hope from the youth. You know what I mean? Because I feel like the kids get a bad rap, you know? Sometimes like people talk about them like, oh, this generation, da 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 da. But like, honestly, I see so much beauty and so much hope in them and I want you to see it too. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. So for this episode of Off Color, we have entrepreneur, actor, provocateur, singer, dancer, writer, rapper, Jeff Campbell. What? What up, Jeff? Hey! I mean, should I just let you introduce yourself maybe? Because I feel like my intros are always a little bit rough.
Can I talk?
Yes. Hit it.
Thank you so much for having me, Rebecca. It's always a pleasure. You're always very entertaining yourself. So I absolutely appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you.
So thank you so much. So let's get into it. Now, the reason I wanted to have you come on today specifically is because our listeners can't see in this room right now, but it is full of the youth of America, baby. Your future sound engineers, your future performers, your future stars are all sitting right now in the House of Pod with the legendary Jeff Campbell.
Right on. I heard there's some beat makers in here, some sound engineers. That sounds really cool. That is a awesome thing to get on the ground level and start learning that stuff now.
So let's talk about your career, your lifetime of activism, artivism, work, music, all of those things. So I want to know, what kind of programming did you have when you were in school around that has led you to kind of the work that you're doing now?
Well, there was no beat making type of classes or anything like that. When I came up when hip hop was born, and it was shunned. It was looked down upon. It was gangster music. It was bad. You know, they would have what they called first of all, corporate commercial radio didn't play it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you could get it on the AM black station at the end of the dial. At night. In Denver, in the middle of the night, you could get it on KDKO, but you could not get it, like on regular mainstream radio. So, and then as it just got more and more popular, they would have what was called no rap work days. They would have, so during the day, you couldn't hear any hip hop. And this is just how, because we always think about the 60s and the civil rights movement and discrimination, but no matter what century we're in, there's always a level of taking music that comes from the street or taking culture that comes from the street and demeaning it, diminishing it, shunning it. So in my era, it was the no rap work day. And still right now, people still have a point of view of hip hop culture, even though hip hop culture is American pop culture at this point. Mm-hmm. You can't turn on the radio, even the rock stations, without hearing that boom bap within the beat, or guitar licks, that are staccato and more polyrhythmic, rather than hearing the melodic stuff that comes from a different, context. So, hip hop is so pervasive. It's permeated throughout American culture now. But, when I was coming up, it was like the most awful thing that could ever possibly happen. And it was just a fad, is what they used to say. I hung out with the older kids who had like a studio in their basement or studio in their bedroom. And I cut my first demo when I was 15 years old. I still remember some of it, but it's
you want to spit some rhymes for us? Come on.
I'm not doing that.
Is it like, my name is Jeff and I'm so cute?
Wasn't like that. No, wasn't like that.
Okay.
But it was pretty bad though. I went by MC Dante. My middle name is Dante. So I went by MC Dante.
MC Dante in the house.
Yeah. So it was.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I was 15 when I cut my first demo, and then at 14 I performed at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. There was a hip hop movie out called Beat Street.
Oh my God, you are old.
Right. Exactly. So Beat Street was a breakdance movie.
Yeah.
And we had a little breakdance crew, and we auditioned.
I heard a rumor that your breakdancing group was called Captain Crunch and the Breaking Bunch. Is that true?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and so and at that point I was hip hop.
Wait a minute. Is there a video of this somewhere?
There
Captain
is.
Crunch and oh my God, we gotta find that. We're gonna put that right on the internet, people.
Well,
okay?
we don't necessarily have to do that.
I know my rights.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you about, kind of briefly, but just that from going from being a teenager to the man you are today. Mm-hmm. So another reason I wanted to have you on is because I've seen two of your theater productions. You have a theater production company called Emancipation Theater. I love your work. Last year was Honorable Disorder? Was that when it came out, or was it
2018?
2018.
Yeah.
That was an incredible play. It was at Cleo Parker Robinson, which is Denver's historically black dance company.
Right.
And your most recent production was called Recipe, and that was right here just down the street from where we are right now at House of Pod in Denver at the Savoy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
As we're in here in this space with all these beautiful young people who are hoping to possibly have careers in sound engineering and music and performance and all of those things, I want you to talk about how Recipe came to be. So for those of you who don't know, Recipe is a play that Emancipation Theater produced, I believe, and you also were starring in it as well. So I want you to tell me how that happened, what you did, and what inspired you. Ready? Go.
Well, Recipe is basically about food in 5 points. So it was a way to tell the history of 5 Points through restaurants, through families that lived here for a long time, and their family recipes and their secret recipes. Also, the spot that the story that I told was a spot just down on Welton Street, ran by Brother Jeff in the 90s. It was Brother Jeff's Cultural Center and Cafe, which is still there now, but he used to do this thing every Friday. It was a Friday night poetry night. So all of the poets that you've seen go on now to do Cafe Nuba, Slam Nuba, all this stuff, Susie Q, Lady Speech, some of the best poets that have come out of Denver, Dominique.
I've had all of them on my show, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
Dominique Christina was on my show. Lady Speech, Theo Wilson.
Right.
So those they've all come on Off Color.
Right. Well, we all met each other and started right there at Brother Jeff's back in the 90s. It was like the version of Denver's Harlem Renaissance. Mm-hmm. Some of the greatest artists that have gone on to write books, to tour the world, to doing all sorts of great things with their words, with their voice, with their talent, with their skills. We all met there, and he created that space for us. So it was, my piece was really a tribute to him creating that space for us.
So I went to see the show, and for all of our beautiful little live studio audience up in here, it was incredible. Did any of you guys get to check it out or see it? Because I told you about it, but no one listened. It's fine. So, but the play, I went to see it. It was incredible. It's in this space called the Savoy. And when you go in there, like you walk in and it's like you're going to, it was like a time machine. It was like going into all these different spaces, watching these different stories. There were smells being pumped in. There was catfish. Like it was incredible. And I thought it was one of the greatest theatrical pieces I've ever seen. And I know I just seem like some crazy lady on the podcast, but I actually have my BA in theater and arts. I've been in lots of shows and I travel all over the world. And I feel like it was such an incredible piece of theater, and I loved it so much.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate that for you for telling that story, because I also feel like Denver stories are important, and we have to carry on tradition, and we have to make sure that we're like documenting that. And I think especially since I have the youth and they're trapped in here literally, like you guys, you got to make sure you know your history and where you come from, and ask your parents and ask your grandparents and ask your aunties and your uncles and your cousins, because those stories, when those people are gone, those stories are lost, you know? So I feel like you kind of immortalized that with the work that you did.
Thank you. I mean, it's very important to me to be a storyteller of our stories here out of Denver, and to really use Denver as the backdrop whenever I write, you know, because, you know, you want to write what you're familiar with. You don't want to write with, you know, something out there that you don't actually live. You know what I'm saying? So that's super important to me, and there's plenty in Denver to inspire.
Rich history here, a very rich history. Now, raise your hand quietly if you know Denver has a rich history of Black culture and music. See, you guys didn't know that. So now you learned something new.
So do they have questions?
I don't know, man. I'm not a professional teacher. Okay, question, Shamika, hit it.
What kind of struggles did you have getting into what you do?
I think the biggest struggle thank you for that question. I think the biggest struggle that anyone has when it comes to creating art and being an artist, I think the number one thing that we can all relate to is confidence. Knowing that what you have to offer is relevant, important to others, or that you actually have the talent or skill to do what it is that you aspire to do. So the number one struggle, I think, is believing in yourself. And once you believe in yourself to a point where this is something that you really want to do and it's who you are, I think then the next obstacle then becomes the how. How do I get there? And so with that confidence coming first, that how, you begin to be driven by that confidence into figuring out that how. That whole question about coming to somebody who may be an expert or may not be an expert. The expert thing's an illusion.
Amen to that.
Okay? But the superstar, unreachable person is an illusion. They are just human beings. They're just like you. They got 2 feet, 2 legs. You know what I'm saying? They're just like you. So there's books out there for anything that you want to do. If you truly have the confidence to do what you want to do, and it's really your purpose, your desire, your vocation, then nothing should be stopping you. If you can read, nothing should be stopping you. I think those are the 2 biggest obstacles. Now, there's, of course, society. There's going to be other people, gatekeepers, who say you can't do that. But I promise you, if you believe in yourself, if you have the confidence and you're willing to do the work to find out how to get it done, you can and will get it done. There's a show on Netflix right now that Eddie Murphy just produced, and he starred in, and it's about the story of Rudy Ray Moore, and it's called Dolomite Is My Name. And this cat was a 2-bit, sorry comedian who wasn't really that good, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But he had this dream of what he wanted to do, and he eventually went on to make 8 films, and his first film went on to gross $10 million. And he just pieced it together himself, and he just had his friends help him out, and he hired some folks that were in the movie industry but weren't real big stars. But, he figured out how to do it. And they dropped so much game in that movie about how to make your dreams come true in show business. He drops so much game in that. You might not be that talented, good of a singer or whatnot, but if you believe in yourself and you have something, then nothing can stop you. You know, I think that's really the bottom line. So, you know, we could talk about, systemic racism or things like that. We will talk about that for the rest of our lives. I would rather talk about the obstacles being, one, my confidence, believing in myself, and two, not knowing what to do, but being willing to pick up a book and find out.
Well, kids, I feel like the knowledge session has been dropped upon us, and I actually needed to hear that myself, you know, because I'm in the middle of self-funding, self-producing all of my own work.
Absolutely.
And I do it because I do love it, and it is a luxury and a privilege that I get to do it.
Right.
I'm so grateful that there are spaces like this where I can feel like, oh, I'm a baller up in this podcast studio, doing it.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, we don't have 1 million listeners, but I feel like the listeners that we have, you know, we're providing something wonderful to them. And,
Absolutely.
And so I will say I'm not making tons of money. No one asked me, but I'm not. But I have something called a Patreon.
Right.
And, you know, right now I get about $80 a month from people who listen to the podcast, who like it, who are willing to pay $5 a month for content. Right.
Sure.
And so I guess I just want to show people that are different ways that we can produce our content and tell our stories and our voice, because nobody has a voice like the Tan Tigress. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the only one. I have my own lens. I have my own life experience, and I like to share that with the people.
Well, I'd like to say this, you know, don't wait around for somebody to tell you or hold your hand. Go to the library, go to the bookstore, find the knowledge, go to Google as your friend, figure it out. You can figure it out. But like, I want to say this, I'm not a thespian. I don't have any training in acting. I would used to audition, and people would say, "Oh, okay, you want to play this security guard with no lines?" Okay, so put on a outfit and stand there. And those are the kind of roles I got auditioning. Or they would say to me, "You know, you're really you can't act, but if you take this class, that you can act." And I was like, "I'm gonna show you what I can do."
Yeah.
So I wrote a script. And then I went and talked to a friend who was a director. I did a table reading for it. It was a one-man show. And he was like, "This is really good." I pieced together, I did a fundraiser for myself, you know, $10 suggested donation. All my friends came out. People were writing $150 checks. You know, I raised the $7,000 it took to do it. And I sold out 5 out of 8 shows. And I doubled my money. You know what I'm saying? And that was the beginning of me doing theater. And no, I don't know all the technical terms. And no, I don't know how the lights, you know, and the stuff work. And I still don't know. But I'm not afraid to be the dumbest guy in the room. You know, I'm not afraid to go talk to some people who do know and hire them to help me out.
I will say, though, that you had an incredible impact on me, actually. So I think we met maybe 3 years ago. Yeah. And when you told me your business plan for Emancipation Theater and your goals of wanting to to create content, to have people involved, to be doing all of these different things, and then also to make money from it so that you could also support young artists, so you could support people in the community, that you wanted to be a philanthropist.
Absolutely.
You know? And so when you said that to me, it did get me really thinking about that. And Tan Tigress Productions also came out of that, right? So I made 3 documentaries. I'm in production now. I was able to go to Sundance. Like, I've been doing all of these things. And I guess I want to say that we never know the impact that we may have on someone, and how important it is for everyone, not just kids, but to have mentors. I have mentors, adult mentors now. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I have people who have my back, who are calling me in the film industry, like all of those things. And so, like, for the youth in the room, I guess I just want you to take advantage of this opportunity, because I may not be the person, like, for my little mentee over here, she's filming, she's doing great, but like, I may not be the person that has all the knowledge that she needs, but I will connect her to the people.
Absolutely.
And so to make sure you're taking advantage of these connections that you have right now.
Also, just take the time to develop the strong relationships among yourselves, because you guys are all going to grow up and pursue dreams in different directions. And these relationships turn into connection, knowing each other, getting to know each other, bond with each other, driving each other, pushing each other, believing in each other. All of that is going to pay off, in your pursuit of your dreams as well. So I just wanted to add on to what you were saying.
I want to shout out Shamika because Shamika is not my official mentee, but she sent me a message and asked me to support her on her trip to going to the HBCUs.
Nice.
Okay. And so to me, that is like a good example of taking advantage of like what was brought to her. She's like, hey, would you mind looking at this and would you share it? And I did. And I don't know if I got you any money, but we'll get you some. Okay.
Right.
Okay. We'll get it. Can you put $1 on her little GoFundMe? So
I want to hear some beats. That's what I want to hear. I know there's some folks in here to make
I got some
beats.
Stand by.
Not your beats.
They're not my beats, sucker. They're this girl's beats.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So stand by. Watch this. Listen. Guess where you can catch this beat by the lovely Yasmin Ali. Can we say your name, baby? This beat, I use it in my short film that I'm premiering tonight at the Black History Month celebration.
That's tight.
What I'm saying is,
very cool.
I love these children.
Of course.
I want to know what the kids are listening to. What are you guys listening to? No one's gonna tell me.
Punk rock, heavy metal, jazz.
Yeah, I feel like you're not a typical youth child because that sounds like a very incredible genre. So like a cross genres, and I like that.
There was a kid in the other group who had a T-shirt of Lil Yachty, right? Didn't he have a T-shirt of Lil Yachty?
Who's Lil Yachty?
He's a rapper.
Yeah.
Well, I thought he was a boat captain. Okay, but I have never. What is he on the radio now? Is he like a star?
Yeah.
Do it for me.
I don't know it.
You don't know it. Does anybody know it? No. Ryaga? Ryaga's a rapper. He's a rapper too. Do you know Ryaga?
I don't. What's happening, bro? How you doing, bro? All right now.
All right, so let's wrap this one up then, okay?
Sure.
All right, so and action. We're here with Jeff Campbell, and as we were talking about, you were giving some incredible advice to the students. I felt like it was good advice to not let themselves. Let me see if I can summarize it. Ready? You told them don't let themselves get in their own way, and to build a strong community, and to network and to get together. Is that what you said? Believe in
yourself, and seek out the knowledge yourself. Because the knowledge is out there. I know a whole bunch of DJs that are perfectionists. These DJs that sit in their basement and they work on their stuff and they never leave the basement, and they're really good. And a lot of them are better than average, but they don't believe in themselves enough to go put themselves out there. And so there's a point where you hone your skills and you know that you're actually good. And sometimes you might need a little moral support from your homies to be like, yeah, man, I was tight. But then you got to graduate from the basement and you got to go out into the community and do your thing if you're really actually serious. It's not just, oh, I believe in myself and you ain't got no skills. Don't do that. Work on your craft, believe in your craft, take it serious. And then when you're ready, step out and give it to the world.
So I am of the school of, even if I'm not ready, I give it to the world. And I think that is also okay.
It is fine. For anybody's level of, what they want to do is fine. There's no one road to success. There's not no one road. There's a million roads to success. I know how it is to be an artist and to work on your craft but not feel like, you're as good as you need to be. But also, I got to a point where I was comfortable with that whole thing about the perfectionist stuff. Like, you went and saw Recipe, and you said you really enjoyed it, and you thought it was great, and all those great accolades that you gave me. Well, you know what? Up until dress rehearsal, I was like, I could just tweak this a little bit more. This script isn't quite right. I could have did that to death. But you know what? Opening night was the next night. And, at some point I got to let go of, is this good enough? Because to the audience, your reaction was, it was great.
It was better than great.
So being your own worst critic is healthy to an extent, but at some point you got to put it out there and have the confidence to say, hey, this is what I've been working on. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. I've put the time into this. Here it is. You'd make a tape back in the day and you didn't have the mastering software on it. You could hear a hiss underneath it, but then you would take it to your homeboy and he would put it in his deck in his ride and it would bump. I used to take my stuff to Federal Boulevard and there would be all these essays with booming systems, and I would give them and they would bump and they'd be like, that goes hard. Who are you? Where can I get this? And I had them all in my trunk. And no, I didn't have the best recording and stuff, but but I put my blood, sweat, and tears to it. So sometimes we put ourselves on we got to be as good as Jay-Z. We got to spend $3 million on putting together this project. No, you don't. You just gotta put it together the best you can, and you gotta get it out there to the people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Jeff Campbell, I want to stop and thank you, baby, for coming on the show.
Right on.
I hope that you will join us again. Will you come back?
Sure, absolutely.
Because you are one of my favorite people in Denver. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary people, we are going to have the indomitable journalist Shay J on the mic up next, and we do have some of our students asking questions, learning how to be good interviewers, giving knowledge, getting knowledge, and I think, Janice, I'm going to let these kids just produce the show. How's that sound? Awesome. All right. Okay. All right. Who, Darren or Shamika? Which one? Shamika, go ahead.
So, who are you?
That's
an open.
yeah, that's very open entrance, right? Well, all right. Where do I start? My name is Shay J. I'm a native from Denver, Colorado. I am on your local news out here. I write for the 5 Points newspaper. I also am on the radio. I talk to all politicians, community leaders, athletes, artists. I do this for a living. So I also am the creative director at the Black Business Initiative, where we help Black businesses scale and grow. I host all the big events out here, from your Juneteenth to your Black History brunches to whatever that is. I do all the international spots as well. So that's who I am.
That sounds awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
It is. It's great.
That's fantastic. So, Shay J, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you are currently working on right now?
Ooh, which project? Currently, I'm actually working on a documentary series. It's an interview documentary series. One thing I love is I do a lot of news, so I have to do the news every day, where I'm covering politics and policies and all those things. But what I really love to do is interview people. And I love to really get to know people's stories. And I think that power is in telling your story to encourage someone else to tell their story and letting people see that you're not alone. And there's a lot of intersections in our stories. And so in doing people's interviews, I'm doing a thing where I'm putting all these amazing interviews. I just got back from Canada and Detroit 3 days ago, and I went and did some interviews out there. And so I'm putting all these interviews together, and I'm going to show them as a big montage of like a movie documentary, different interviews. So that's what I'm currently working on.
So do you love your job? Do you love traveling places, interviewing people?
I absolutely love it. And I wouldn't even call it a job. It's my career. It's my passion, and it's my purpose. I would not be doing this if I didn't love it, because it's way too hard. So I would not be. Absolutely.
So you said you went to Canada?
I did. I just got back from Canada like 3 days ago.
What's it like there?
Canada's cold. It's just like,
cold.
it's really, really cold, okay? Really, really cold. The food was amazing, though, but no, it's extremely cold. Beautiful, beautiful place. I want to go back and explore some more, but it was great. Just really cold.
Do you get to travel like a lot of different places?
I do. I think it's all about the opportunities that you want and creating the vision for yourself. And so a part of my vision is I don't have any kids, and I always wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And, being a woman in my 30s, that's very rare when you don't have kids and all that stuff. And so I make those opportunities. And when I wasn't getting booked, I started creating things. So I did a thing last year with a group of other ladies, and it was called the Black Agenda on Tour. And we got David Banner for our headliner, who's a big rapper that went to an activist, and we got him. We went to different cities, and we did this tour, and we did a 7-city tour. So sometimes it's like you're not getting booked, create something. And whatever you want to do, you can do that. And that's a part of what I want to do. I want to travel, meet new people, see new things. And so, yeah, I love it.
All right, these are some fantastic questions.
Yes,
So, I know they're really great. All right, so who would like to hop on the mic and do some stuff, guys? Don't be shy, or do if that's who you are. That's
yes,
fine
and I just want to give a
also.
shout out to Northeast Early College. I've been working with Tim, as one of my interns, Tim Sanders.
Tim!
And so I love them, and I love what you guys are doing. And I just say keep going towards your goals and your dreams. And Tim has been great, and he's actually going on I'm going to be on the HBCU tour and taking him with me to do some filming. So
Wait, you're going to be? Is that the same HBCU tour?
It is. I actually presented them with this tour.
Oh, can I? I
Yeah,
want to go. I want to be. Can I be
Let's
a
make it work.
sponsor?
Yeah, let's make it work. Let's
I
get you on
really
there.
want to go.
So my girl Michelle and Tiffany are the runners of the Rise 5280, which is the HBCU tour. They started doing this a couple years ago, and they do it like 3 times a year, and they take these students.
How come no one
Learn.
invited me?
I'm
so
inviting you now.
mad. Okay. All right. So we
Hello
have.
there.
Yeah. So why don't you go? We have another fantastic entrepreneur. What's your name, child? All right, Nikki. Why don't you go ahead and dive right on in?
Okay, what were some struggles like you had to get up on the position you have right now?
Well, that's a great question. What struggles have I had that I still have that I'm going through? It's hard. I would say the number one struggle is trusting the journey. A lot of things happen along your journey, and you're not quite sure of how it's adding up to where you're supposed to be going. And honestly, just trusting those places and trusting those things, it was hard because I have always had this vision. I always knew what I wanted to do. And in some capacity or the other, I was always doing that. But some things I feel like, oh, that should have been bigger, or I should have got paid more for that, or why am I doing this internship for free for this long, and all those things. But I'm seeing everything come full circle. So really just trusting the process and trusting where I was at and enjoying that moment and not thinking about what was next.
That's good.
Does anybody else want to get on? I feel like the kids.
Yeah, come on. We want some new people. Get on here.
Are
Where
we?
the guys at? I don't feel like he's shy. You come on. Yeah, you're not shy.
This little
You
cutie.
shy?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Then, Shanika.
Well, it's not really a question.
Yeah.
It's like a proposition or whatever. But anyways, so at Northeast Early College, we're having a Black History Month assembly, and we need like speakers to speak. So I was wondering, would you like to?
I would love to. Let's make sure I can get that on my calendar, and I would absolutely love to. Thank you for that invitation. That was so beautiful. I love that. And I think that's one of the important things is I learned in doing this is how much representation matters. You have to see somebody that looks like you to understand that you can do it, somebody that went through something similar than you. It really encourages you. And I think that was a lot of the things that I do now is making sure I reach back, because when you see things, you understand you can do anything, and it's really possible.
What's your question back there, young lady?
I just wanted to know.
No one can hear you.
Yes, we can. What you mean?
Hi.
The thing.
I was wondering if you could talk about the Juneteenth festival and how long you've been working with that and what that means for the neighborhood and community, because it's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely. Juneteenth is one of my favorite celebrations, especially here in Colorado. I try to make it a point to even be in town every year. That's how important it is to me. Juneteenth, for those of you who don't know, is when we found out that we were no longer slaves. So it's a celebration of that, and it comes at the Juneteenth era, so the end of the teens. And in Denver, we have one of the largest Juneteenth celebrations, and it used to be a couple days, and then it's went down to like 1 day, then they brought it back up to 2 days. But it's an amazing celebration that takes place on the 5 Points, goes up and down the blocks, and you have all the people, the goods and the services, people that normally don't have stores probably, that are selling their stuff outside. And then we have amazing entertainment. So this year we had Ashanti, we had Rod Jones, we had Such, we had an amazing group of people, and then we had a lot of local artists. So it not only gives our local artists a chance to perform, but then it gives the bigger artists. We had Jada Kiss the year before. So every year we have somebody different, but we get to infuse all this art and vision and people that do amazing things in our community and outside of our community, and really get to highlight Black people that don't normally get to get highlighted in that type of realm. This was one of our largest ones yet. We covered, I think it was 30 blocks of people. So I'm just really happy to be a part of something so phenomenal, and being able to host the last 3 years has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think I encourage you all to go to it if you haven't been. It's for everybody. It's amazing.
Well, I just want to know, because I feel like I got these kids looking at me. And I want to know, if they have any questions or comments or
and if you
concerns.
questions that maybe
Do you regret anything in the past, or do you want to do you wish if you could go back and change something that you did wrong?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, that's I think that's a double-edged sword, because on one end you're like, everything made me who I am today, and on the other end it was like, that was so stupid. Like, why did you do that? That was so stupid. And I think that really not understanding some of the opportunities I had and the way that they were. I think that when you're younger, you don't see that you're not going to always get these opportunities. Like, doors just kept opening, so I was like, I took a lot of that for granted. But I think a lot of opportunities, I didn't fully seize it, and I didn't fully participate, and I didn't give my all. And I feel like if I would have, what would that have opened up, you know? If you really commit to something, just imagine how great that would be. So just that level of giving 100% commitment, I think is one of the only regrets that I really have, because there were sometimes I'm like, dang, that could have been great. You know, that could have went to a whole nother level, and just seeing some of the people that did commit in that moment and what happened to them, or all those type of things. And so I think really opening up to that, and everybody that you meet, you can learn something from. So understanding that and taking every opportunity seriously. I had some amazing mentors that I, didn't really keep in contact with. Like, they were great in the moment, and then I was like, okay, next. But kind of seeing like, dang, they were actually really dope.
Yeah, like if Rebecca is your mentor, you know what I mean?
Like recognize it.
Like Rebecca-nize it.
Rebecca-nize it. Oh, snap. Creativity wins again.
Hashtag mom jokes what?
What? Hashtag no mama jokes.
I tell all kinds of good jokes.
You do.
And they're nice and clean. Go ahead, Dawn.
How do you manage your time wisely?
Ooh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Girl, you're putting the fire on with these questions.
The fire on. It's like, now let me be accountable on that question. No, how I manage my time wisely is creating. If you don't plan, you plan to fail. And that's 100% the real thing. So I really have my phone that has my schedule in it. And then I have my iPad that has a schedule in it. And then I have a planner. So the night before I go to bed, I'm writing like the top 5 things that I have to complete the next day. I have to be at whatever I have to do. I look at that before I go to bed and then when I wake up. Therefore, I'm really just aware of all the things that I have to take care of and what that looks like, because my schedule is ridiculous. And I've done that thing where I've triple, quadruple booked myself, which I still do. And I'm working on that, and like my assistants are working on, like, you can't say you're going to be every place at 4:05. Like, it doesn't work like that. I'm like, well, there's going to be 4:05. I'll be there at 4:25, which is kind of like 4:05. Like, I have all these crazy things in my head, but really be like, what 5 things do I have to do? What do I have to be present for? And then when is self-time in there? And realizing, like, I can't pour out of an empty cup, so I have to take some self-time at some point.
Have you ever set any time aside for yourself besides work?
Now, I think the last 2 years have been one of my business partners. She's always like, this is the year of no for you. Say no. And the key is not just saying no, but saying no when things are out of alignment with your goal, because that's what takes you off course. When you think every opportunity is an opportunity, it's not. And so sometimes, like, I'm now realizing, like, that sounds great, but that's actually not where I'm at right now. Like, that sounds good, but I can't do that. I used to manage a lot of rap artists. And so now a lot of them will come back and be like, hey, Shay, you got me on the dope tour with J. Cole, so I'm going to need you to pick up this new project. And the Shay in me, I'm a hustler, so I'm like, yep, let's do it. And then I'm like, nah. Actually, right now, I'm interviewing all the politicians for presidential candidates, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and that's really where I'm at right now. So learning how to say no, and it's been hard because I'm like sort of a people pleaser, and then I love what I do, so I want to be everywhere and do everything all the time. And sometimes you have to set some boundaries for yourself to be okay.
Kind of sounds like me.
See, yeah,
no, me too. This baby took it deep for me for a minute, because I'm like, I just don't. I do the same thing.
When you're a go-getter and when you're a hustler and when you're a grinder, a lot of things are gonna, come to you. And then when you're in your winning season, a lot of people want to attach themselves to you because you're winning. So you gotta learn how to be like, hey, this is actually not my lane right now. So no disrespect to you, like, keep doing what you're doing, but this is not my lane right now.
Yes, child, Darren.
What rappers have you worked with?
Oh my God. Whew. Let's see, that's a good one. I've worked with J. Cole. I have worked with Jadakiss. I have worked with David Banner. I have worked with what are they? The Outlaws. They were with Tupac. I worked with them on the All Eyes on Me project last year when they put out the movie. I have worked with Do or Die. I have worked with, there's so many of you guys out there. I just did Common's interview last year. So I worked with Common on a brief interview. Who else?
Wait a minute. You work with Common? You know Common, my boyfriend.
I didn't know that. And I can't remember. There's so many other ones. Kendrick Lamar and Absol, before they got big, worked with them on some projects.
So you actually worked with J. Cole?
Yeah, I've actually I knew his producer for a while, so we started working on some things out there, and that was a really good fun time. Really fun time.
So can you give me some connections? I'm trying to meet famous people.
Yeah.
Right.
It's, I went to performing arts college, and that was one of the main things. Is your network becomes your net worth, and so I think it's really important to network. And going to performing arts college, I went with I don't know if you guys know Jason Derulo, but he's a pop star. So me and him, we lived together in college. We went to college together, and having those type of relationships, you learn how to just manifest different relationships. And so that's been a part of my grind, just being like, hey, what do you need and where you're going? Because a lot of artists, they're artists, but then they want to do other things. And so you have to teach them the other part of the game that they don't actually know. And so I just been able to be present and working with local artists. Tuski, he owns Welton Street Cafe out here, working with him and people like that. It allows me to connect them on different platforms.
Now listen, I got a serious question though.
Yes.
So I would like some good interview tips, for how to interview people, how to talk to people, how to make them comfortable. Because I've seen you interview many times. I think you are a fantastic interviewer, I think you make people feel very comfortable and willing to open up to you. So I would like to get a little bit of a blessing from you at this time.
Thank you. That's so sweet. First and foremost, don't look at it like you're interviewing somebody. Look at it like you're sitting down to have a conversation, and there's something you just want to know, but you want to give to. I think that's the biggest thing. When I come to it, I'm like, at the end of this conversation, I want to walk away and feel like I know this person even more than I ever did. And I want to feel like they know a little bit of me too. I don't want it to feel like I'm just interrogating you. And so I think I told Rebecca this. I joke all the time, when I go on dates, to these guys, they're asking all these questions, and I'm like, yo, I feel interrogated and I hate it. Don't do that. Don't rattle off questions no one likes that. And so when I'm doing an interview, I literally think how do I make this the most authentic conversation? And then how do I tell a story? Because if you don't tell a story, then it really connects to no one. And those are the things that I'm looking for, to have this human interaction that tells some type of story so we can get somewhere. And usually people that I sit down that I don't like, I end up liking at the end because we've told some part of their story that makes them human. And I'm like, oh, you're not just a little piece of shit.
Yeah. And now what else? What other questions does anyone have before we kind of start? Because I feel like the other group. Yes, Darren. Darren, do you want to get on the mic, baby?
It's I am Shay J.
Ah, you want to get on Instas.
Yep, Instagram is at I am Shay J. Follow me, say what's up. I'm trying to get my social media game back up because I just really, guys, I suck at that social media stuff.
So what else are we doing?
What other
right
questions
now?
do you guys have? Does anybody else have?
I just feel like there's a lot of quiet cups in here.
Yeah, I feel like the people that haven't talked have to ask one question, whatever it may be.
Oh, why don't you ask the kids some icebreaker questions?
Can you start with me first?
No.
Sure.
Okay, fine, go. I feel left out.
Why are we
guys,
it's like a weird twin situation. She's just like me too also.
Oh, yes, I want to hear your question.
I said, what advice would you have for us?
Well, that's a good one. What advice would I have for you? My number one piece of advice would be create a vision. Without a vision, you will be so far from wherever because you won't know where you're going. So I don't know how many of you guys know about vision boards.
I do.
Yeah? I say, and guys, you might be like, that's stupid, but let me tell you, when it works, it really works. Whether you're doing a vision board, a vision notebook, a vision log, whatever you want to do, create a vision and figure out what it is you want, what attracts you. So when I first started doing my vision board, I didn't really know what I was doing. And so somebody was like, get some magazines, get some words, sit down, have this vision board. And so what we did, we just started cutting out things that I was attracted to. And it was I would find words like powerful. I would see microphones. I would see places that I wanted to go with water, beaches. I would see homes that I liked, all these different things. And I started to create what I wanted parts of my life to look like. And I think once you have that, you don't get too far from where you're going because you have some type of roadmap. And literally, I remember I was in New York, and I graduated college in New York. I lived out there for about 6 years. When I was coming back, I was creating a vision board. And I was looking at all these random apartments and all these layouts and all this stuff I wanted. And I didn't really have any real plan. I just was coming back to Denver. And literally everything on my vision board manifested. I had a layout for an apartment downtown. I moved into that layout of that apartment downtown. I had a date that I wanted to have. I put on there shine, and then I put a date. And I didn't know then I was going to direct and write my own play. So I did this whole play, and it was stages, and I had the stage on my vision board, and all those things started to manifest in their own way. And some differently than what I thought it was on my vision board. It manifested in a different way. But I had something to look forward to. So I would just say create that vision. Know what you want, and then no one can really tell you what to want because you know what you want.
When you travel the world, what was like the craziest thing you've seen?
Oh.
Whoa, Tara.
Now
what's
keep
the
it high school appropriate.
Right, yeah. I was like,
Thank
wait,
you.
how old are you guys?
Okay.
Okay.
13, 14-year-olds.
PG rated.
Yeah.
You know what? This is gonna sound really weird, but because it's not
alright, go for
crazy,
it.
but it's crazy, but it's not crazy at all. And it's just I think the psychological part. So I lived in Mexico for a while. I lived in Mérida, Mexico, and when I lived out there, I seen there was the ladies on the corner that were making tortillas, and there were the people that were doing like random little things and making it and doing all that. But what I seen was happiness all around. And I wasn't used to that because I was used to being around football players that had to have it, artists that had to have it, and they had all these things that made them happy. And when I seen pure happiness, and then I seen nobody was homeless because everybody was coming together and building, that blew my mind. And it really gave me a sense of like, wow, it doesn't take all that. And it's never, I don't think, a specific thing that makes you happy, but just being in a happy state. And I think it changed my thought process a lot of what I thought I needed to be happy and what I wanted and what I needed right away. And Mexico just gave me a whole different vibe. Like, it was like I was in heaven every day. Like, I was going to the pyramids and I was praying at pyramids and I was going to the ocean and I was going to cenotes, and it just made me appreciate life. And I was like, dang, and they're really coming together and living, and no one's homeless and they're supposed to be poor. Okay. So that changed my life.
That's a great experience.
Thanks, it was. As I say, everybody go out of the country at some point. You have to go out of the country. Go somewhere, travel. Please, go see the world. There's a whole other world besides where you live. Go see it.
So when I was 16, I went to Spain for a year, and I was an exchange student, and I lived there, and that's porque hablo español con mi acento de madrileña de vez en cuando. La zeta. But I'm saying is that was something that I did as a teenager, and it wasn't super expensive. It wasn't, you know what I mean, because of the way exchange programs work and stuff at that time anyway. So I feel like that was a big life shift for me, was spending that year, living abroad. So what we're doing now, Shayja's going to take some nice selfies. She's looking good. Are you just checking yourself?
Yeah, I'm just checking myself.
All right. So we're going to keep carrying on our conversation that we had started with our other youth interviewers. So what we're doing at this time is I'm going to have you guys are going to interview Shay, and you can ask her basic interview questions. Okay? Why don't you start with a couple like icebreaker questions that you would ask to like make her feel comfortable? How does that sound? Good?
Good.
Okay. What's your name? And say your name just so that we have it.
My name is Jalen,
Hey,
but I go by Jay.
Jay on the mic. Okay. Sorry.
I just want to ask, what do you do for like a living?
Yeah. Well, Jay, I do a little bit of everything, but the main thing I do is I am a writer at the 5 Point newspaper. I'm also on the radio with 5 Point News Brother Jeff Network. I interview all your local and national politicians, community leaders, activists, artists, entertainers. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. I also am the creative director at the Black Business Initiative, where I help Black businesses scale, grow, and do like summits and conferences and things of that sort. I host also around different platforms. I host Juneteenth every year. I host brunches. I host anything that's going on. And sometimes I'm in the country, out of the country, around the states, and do a lot of different project management.
That's cool.
Thanks.
All right, go ahead, young person. What is your name again? Sorry.
Jorge.
Hey, Jorge.
Like, what famous people have you worked with?
Oh, people love these famous people.
I know, they do. They are tuning in.
A little bit of everybody. I guess depending on what lane. So I've worked with, most recently, let's see, David Banner. I did Common's interview. I worked with Brandon Marshall from the Broncos. I've worked with Von Miller. I've worked with Karen Civil, who's Nipsey Hussle and YG's manager. I've worked with, I did Ashanti last year. Just a little bit of everybody. It's been a lot of different people. Yeah.
All right, so my next question for the youth, okay? What are you trying to get out of this experience today? Like, what have you gotten so far? I'm just curious because we have a minute, so I wanna know.
like, even though I want to go into like music and like rap and all that, maybe I want to like expand my horizons and do like maybe like a podcast or something in the theater. I don't know.
That's beautiful.
God, I'm gonna cry.
That's beautiful. And what I want to say to that is, and one thing I talked about with the other group, is that you got to trust your journey, and you got to, I think it takes everything to do everything, kind of, especially in this industry. I graduated Performing Arts College in New York City, lived in New York for 6 years. I went to school with like Jason Derulo's and people that did a lot of un-Broadway, off-Broadway type of stuff. So I had a whole different eclectic journey in the beginning. Started out writing, directing, and producing my own plays, and then went into artist management, then went into radio, and started out doing commercials. And so it's been a little bit of everything. It's been in front of the camera, behind the camera, producing, directing, sitting back, creating, and I think it takes a little bit of everything. So don't be afraid of dabbling at all.
It's tag team. We're just doing it. We're trying to get some good questions. Okay, who's next? Who's going to replace Jorge? You're on, man. Hit it.
My name is Aaron.
Hey, Aaron.
And I was wondering, what's one of the most memorable interviews you've had?
Ooh, that is a great question, Aaron. Come through with the good questions off bat, okay? Oh, that is... Okay, can I have two?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I would say one of the most memorable interviews I had was with Karen Civil, who's Nipsey Hussle and YG's manager. And because she was so open and very authentic. And when you get to that stature, it was right after Nipsey Hussle died, so everybody was pulling in all these different directions. And to have her sit down and really be authentic and really give herself in that was beautiful, and I think it was phenomenal. And I did it on a stage where people could watch and see and people could ask questions, and so it was super memorable in the sense of I feel like everybody was touched by that interview. The other interview that was super memorable for me, and it was because it went national, I did an interview on last year with Jamie Gillis. She was in the election against Mayor Hancock, and during the interview I asked her if she knew what the NAACP stood for. She did not, and it ended up going national. It went all over the news and everybody got it and got win. Hancock used it in his commercial to win, so it obviously set me on a whole different level because people were calling me Roland Martins and CNN, and I went down to Channel 4, then Channel 9, 7, and like it went stupid crazy. So that obviously is very memorable.
That was a great question.
That was. Excellent question.
All right, you ready, baby?
Yep.
You got your question?
Yep.
All right, lay it on us.
Who was the first person that you interview?
Oh,
that is a great question.
I'm like, that is a really good question. God, I have to think so far back. Who was the first person I interviewed? I would say it had to be like one of my cousins. Like, I literally have wanted to do this thing my whole life. So the crazy part is I had those cassette things back in the day, and I would sit there and I would interview people about random stuff, and they'd be like, why is she doing this? So it had to be one of my cousins that I thought was cool in the moment, and I don't think they're probably that cool now, but I interviewed them and I asked a lot of questions, like what she wanted to do when she grew up, and who did she think she would be, and how did she think life would be. So that was one of my first interviews. And then when I got to the big leagues, I don't even remember who my first interview was.
Do you have any of those tapes still? Did you have any?
No, because it was stuff? That's when I was on PBS, I think, was the first station I was on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I meant like your interviews of your cousins and stuff.
I wonder. I feel like I do. I had saved some tapes.
Yeah,
I did.
You should. I would. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
Let's
Baby
see how crazy
Shay J. Who else didn't get to go?
Question.
Great question. Good job.
Yes.
Yeah, I was impressed by that.
Me too.
Okay.
I know you're not that shy.
She's as shy as she needs to be in this world, but this is still school, so
right.
Go ahead
that part, right.
Put those headphones on.
It's still school. I love.
Who has not gone? Who has not taken a seat?
This young man.
This young man. Can you get on the mic over there? Thank you, baby. All right. Now the quiet ones usually have the questions.
No, they do.
But
they're the ones that hide all the good questions inside of them.
And so,
like,
and then this is like totally off the thing, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. So for somebody like me, for personalities like Shay J and myself, we can't make it in this world without more introverted, quiet people because like that just, first of all,
it would be overload.
It's too much. Like we can barely even hang out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's
we
a
have
lot.
to tailor this
it's
thing.
Loud. Like
it's like whoa. It's like. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that I not everyone needs to be a crazy extroverted person because that's not how the world works.
No.
So like
we need balance.
Right.
We need balance.
All right.
I'm ready for you guys.
All right. So go ahead. Just say your name and then ask a little question.
My name's Josue, and the question I have for both of you is, what's something that has really stuck to you guys that someone has said to you?
A positive or negative?
That's a good or bad. That's exactly what I said. Good or bad.
Yeah.
It could be both.
Okay. Wow. That was deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Toss the ball.
Okay, you go first.
Okay. they told me that I couldn't do everything. And, I think that is a very common thing that's said to people. You can't do it all. But then I realized that was their capacity and they couldn't do it all. And that had nothing to do with me. And so I had to learn how to internalize that for my own self and be like, that's where you're at. But Shay J, she can do it all. Now, what she needs to learn how to do is where to put those alls at and what effort and when. But don't let anyone ever tell you can't have it all, you can't do it all. That's their capacity. That's nothing to do with your limits.
So I'm going to take it to a totally different place, I think. I had somebody tell me, you'd be so pretty if you lost weight.
Boo.
Right? No, but why I'm saying that is that it left a mark on me in that regard. But hello, I'm gorgeous. And I got my mans that buys me my stuff and put me in a big house and all of those things that maybe fat people are told they can't have.
Yeah, no,
or something.
That's good.
And so I feel like that was that's something that really stuck with me. Like my beauty is not tied to like my weight or whatever.
Come through, Rebecca, with the knowledge. I feel like we need to have a whole other show. Let me just go ahead and wrap it. I know
these kids be blowing it up with these
Right.
questions,
Okay.
though, right.
Come through with a good question.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, a positive. I think. What's my best positive?
I got one.
Go
if
ahead.
you want to think while you're doing it.
Go
But
ahead.
I just feel like mine is actually super recent. No, but I just was a few weeks ago, a cousin of mine was visiting, and I do a lot of mixed race identity stuff. I'm very black oriented, very black focused. And people ask me sometimes, well, why don't you talk about your white side of the family? I'm like, well, I don't need to hype white people because white people got hyped enough already, right?
Right.
However, I am descended from one of like the greatest like thinking minds in the world even. Her name was Jane Jacobs. And so my cousin was visiting and she said to me, you really remind me of Jane Jacobs because of the way you're organizing and the way you're making change in your community by like bringing people together in community spaces and stuff. And like, I had not thought of myself as like her. She is quite, if you know who she is, she's like a big deal in certain circles. And so I never thought of it like that. But yeah, like I really feel that.
You feel closer to.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that was a good one.
That is a good one.
And I'm making a movie about her. I'm actually doing my first biopic. Okay, sorry. That was a good one though. I like that.
That was.
Okay. All right. Are you ready? Yasmin, can you say your name and ask your question?
My name is Yasmin. And what's one of your greatest achievements so far in your career?
I mean, they don't even play, right?
They don't even
These
play. They
questions
get right
are like
to it. Like, don't stand up here and act like you don't. Like, okay, let me get my life together. My greatest achievement was going all the way entrepreneur. It's a hard step and it's a big jump. A lot of times what happens is as an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur and then you go back and you start working somewhere else and you're an entrepreneur and then you go back and you step in another space and another space and another space. And the year I was working at Embassy Suites and I was the manager and everything was great. But I was longing for what I loved and I was missing out on a lot of things. And so for me, like everybody's different, but for me, I wanted to be 100% entrepreneur. And I wanted to trust that even on bad days, I could do it. So when I really stepped out on faith and took that leap, I think that was one of the greatest accomplishments, like completely and totally believing in myself and knowing that I would figure it out.
Do we have more questions? Anybody have more questions? You're here. It's now.
You might as well get them in.
Might as well get it in.
You kind of answered it when I was over there because I was gonna ask, like, did you ever see yourself being like as successful as you are now when you were little?
Absolutely. This thing has been in my blood since day one. And I tell people in the entertainment industry, if there's anything else that you want more, or like more, go do it. Like, go. This is not for the weak. This is not for the kind of want to do this. It's not for you at all. So if this is something that you love, you breathe, you sleep, I mean, I've wanted to do this my whole entire life in one capacity or another. Whether it was like, okay, I'm going to go and be on the stage for a while. Then it was like, okay, I'm going to do some radio. Okay, now I'm going to write some plays. Now I'm going to try to get this commercial. Like I was doing all these things and I've never stopped. It's just grown in different ways. And so I didn't know what success looks like. I just knew that I wanted to do this. And so now I've seen like being able to do this and provide for myself and to keep growing. It's been a blessing. And so I know there's more to come, but it's been a complete blessing. Yeah.
I love that.
Oh,
that's a good question too.
That's
Any
a
of the
great
adults
question.
have any questions?
I know, right? We can let adults talk.
We let the adults talk last time too. Do you guys have any questions, concerns, comments? I love this. Guys, I'm good.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. Just that I thought I was gonna bomb this thing today, but it came out real good. Put that in the pod, Janice. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Dee. I'm a para at Northeast Early College.
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you. I don't even have a question. I just want to say that I have actually. I thought I said that before.
I love that. I love that. Okay.
But I have actually known Shay since. I know it was around high school.
Yeah.
And she has been I've been able to witness this since then, and it's just amazing and beautiful to see your growth. And not only that, but just to hear all this today, you never really know the backstory and stuff, but to know that this has been your passion and you're really in your passion, it's incredibly inspiring, both of you all.
Thank
but
you.
Just
I
to be able to
really
witness that. Sorry.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. Because I think you don't really know when people are going through this journey. You're like, how attached are you to this journey? Or did you fall into this? Or what is this about? And it's like, no, guys, I live, sleep, breathe this ish. And wouldn't want it any other way. So thank you for that support. That's what keeps me going. When someone has told me before that you've made me care about things I didn't care about, because with me interviewing politicians, there's a whole now group of people that didn't care about politics that are now listening to politics, or people that are like, I needed somebody that looked like me so I knew I could do it. Those are the reasons that you keep going, because you realize representation matters. And if we don't represent and we're not in a space where people see something that looks like them or feels like them or energy that grasps them, they don't even know they can obtain it. So I'm just grateful to be a vessel in that whole grand scheme of life.
I'd like to give a special shout out to all of our guests that came today, from Shannon Hoffman, Northeast College, to Jeff Campbell, not Brother Jeff, other Jeff. And I would also like to thank House of Pod for opening up the space to us today to have that tour. And I would also like to thank all of our Patreons. And I'd like to give a special shout out to Jen Chamberlain, who has contributed extra so that we can start transcribing our interviews to make sure that Off Color is truly an inclusive podcast. So if you like our work, if you support our work, and you want to drop a dime on it, hit up the Tan Tigress Patreon. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit us up on social media. Off Color Pod on Twitter, Off Color Podcast on Facebook, Tan Tigress on the Instagrams. And if you have anything else you want to top it up with, you can also email us at tantigress@gmail.com. I don't know what else is happening right now, but I think we need to get out of here.
Yeah, we're hot.
It's hot.
So, and cut.